Hi, this is Liz, and welcome to my podcast, Spiritually Speaking with Liz. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Sue. Sue is a friend who I met in Spain, and she's a holistic therapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, as well as practicing reflexology. Sue has been practicing Reiki for over 19 years now, so she's got a lot of experience, which is why I wanted her on, because she really is the real deal, in my opinion. She works intuitively with people, finding the cause of their physical and emotional issues and helping them to heal and release them. So, Sue, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Liz. I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's dive straight in. And for those that don't know, everybody's heard about, or everybody's heard the word Reiki. But what is Reiki?
Well, I always find that Reiki is quite a difficult thing to explain. It's more something you experience. But basically, it's a universal life force energy that is around us, around everybody. And Reiki is a way of tapping into that energy. So, to be able to use Reiki, you have to be attuned through a Reiki Master. And then that's the way that you can channel that energy that's all around us. Everything has got energy. Your dining table, the food you eat, everything has got energy. And it's just a way of harnessing that energy and using it for healing.
Fabulous. And where does it come from? Where did it originate from?
Well, as far as we know, because like lots of things, we're only the history we have is only the history that we're given. And I found myself that some of the history that you're given is now been proved that it's not correct. So some people have a different version of the history. And we know that history can be manipulated to see who it suits. But it originally came from Japan, as far as we know, from a Dr. Usui. Now, Dr. Usui, he also studied psychology and medicine. So he liked kind of like things the medicine side, but also the metaphysical side of things. And he was the one who basically, we think, discovered it. Although there is lots of people who say actually monks was using this kind of energy for a long, long time. Um, but he's basically the one who they say brought the Reiki to life, basically.
And so it's his lineage. Now, there are different types of Reiki, aren't there?
Well, there are different types of Reiki, but they all come from basically from the same energy. But people have different takes on a different form of Reiki. And there's Sakine Reiki, there's Usui Reiki, and that the Usui Reiki is the only Reiki that I use, and that's what I was trained in, and that's how I train other people.
Okay. Do you do training now then as a Reiki master?
Yeah, I've taught Reiki now for quite a number of years, and that is one of my pleasures. I absolutely love teaching Reiki. I love opening people up to something different, something more, and it just this thing starts a fire inside you, where you just want to learn more. You just like you can't get enough of it. You think I need to learn more, I need to learn more, and you just read and read and read everything to do with it because it's it sets you on a completely different path where you can see, feel, anything that's around you seems to be heightened.
I think that Reiki 1 particularly. So Reiki 1 is you taught it for yourself, aren't you? And then
That's
Reiki 2
right.
is when you're given the symbols to then use on other people.
That's
I
right.
think Reiki 1 should be brought into schools in some way.
Oh, most definitely. Because I actually think some of the things, I mean, now I know that mindfulness is being taught in
Yeah,
some schools, and
yeah.
so it should be, because we're never taught how to manage our emotions, how to, and even as children find it very difficult to manage emotions, and a lot of the time, parents find it difficult. So when I have a thing about boys, like there's the old thing is boys don't cry. If you're a sissy if you cry, and it's like an old way of thinking. So lots of boys can't manage their emotions. So I think it's such a good thing to bring these things into schools. And Reiki One is really about you,
Mm.
about you learning you and managing your emotions. And Reiki One is just so wonderful. You know, if you think when you have Reiki One, you think, God, it gets better than this, you know, and you think, wow.
It does. It just sort of opens the doors, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
just introduces you
yeah,
to a whole new world, really, doesn't it?
a
So
whole new world.
who could train in Reiki?
Anybody, absolutely anybody. Reiki, you see, it's not a religious thing. Reiki is non-religious. So sometimes I think people who are like, you know, brought up in a traditional Christian or Catholic faith, they sometimes think, oh, well, I can't do Reiki because it's against my religion. It's non-religious. This is the energy that's all around us. So anybody can train in Reiki, anybody. And you don't even need to be spiritual, because I never realized how spiritual I actually was, but I was from a child. I've always been intuitive. Um, Although I didn't realize the gifts that I had, because there's nobody else in my family like that. And I just thought I was just a little weirdo who said my prayers every night. But actually, I was connecting to spirit from a very, very young age. And I never realized that's what it was, because nobody ever spoke about that. And even my guide spoke to me from as a child. And I used to always think that everybody knew that. It was just a thing. I thought I was
Yeah.
born with it. I thought everybody knew that. And what I think what changed for me was when I was about 12. I mentioned it to somebody, you know, and I said, well, you know, when that voice, you know, tells you and it helps you do things. And they looked at me and said, if you're hearing voices, you've got a mental issue. But they were serious. And then I did start thinking, oh my goodness, I must have this mental issue. And it actually made me shut it off for a while, thinking, oh, I get told like things. It was always for safety, you know, like I went to cross the road once and I just heard the word stop, just like that. And I stopped and a car was coming. I hadn't even noticed. I was in my own little world. And lots of things I just got told, like, be cautious, beware, you know, when there was a situation. And I thought everybody had that. And it wasn't until, like I say, I was 12 that I realized everybody didn't have that. So yeah.
That's lovely. And it's a shame that a lot of, as children, we are closed down because don't be silly, you know, your imaginary friend,
Yeah,
you are making it up, don't be silly and all, you know,
yeah,
it is really
yeah.
a shame. So let me ask you, what brought you specifically to Reiki?
Well, what brought me specifically to Reiki is, well, it's a little bit of a story in a way, because previously I'd been a chef in my past version of me. And then I had my son, and then I became ill. And I've actually realized there's a theme with a lot of people who do go on to become healers. They often have a past of some rare illness. And so when I was 31, a few years back, um, I started having a problem with my sight. And in fact, I lost at one point nearly 80% of my vision, which was
Wow.
very, very scary. Then I was having lots of neurological problems, physical problems, joint problems. And then it was discovered that I had a rare autoimmune condition called sarcoidosis. And nobody's ever heard of it, you know, when I ever say, you know, and I also had a rare eye condition just to add to that, and that was called posterior uveitis. So I was on lots and lots of medication to save my sight, to make me feel well. But I discovered that I thought these medicines were going to cure me. And I
Hmm.
remember saying, oh, okay, so why am I taking all this medicine? Is it going to cure me? And I was told, no, this is just to manage symptoms. And to me, that seemed crazy. It seemed a crazy thing. Why am I not going to heal? Why will I take all this medicine? But I did, and I was on immune suppressants and steroids that are very strong medicines. And then I wanted to go down a holistic route. I wanted to find out if there was another route that I could go down to help to heal myself, or help with the medication, help with the side effects. And I discovered reflexology. So I went to college and I did my reflexology. And we all worked in a little group and we did each other's feet. And about 3 different people said to me, do you do healing? And I said, no, I've never heard of healing. I said, no. And they said, well, whenever you touch me, nobody else in the class but you, I get these tingles up my legs and I feel different. I can feel this energy whenever you touch me. And I was thinking, 3 different people have said this. And then somebody started saying to me, somebody had said, you should do Reiki. And I was like, what's Reiki? Never heard of it. And it just seemed then, and I think Reiki finds you, it really does. So it then became like a whisper that then became a drum beat. Reiki, Reiki. It
I like
seemed
that.
like everywhere I seemed to go, somebody talked about Reiki. But I thought, I've never heard of it. And now all of a sudden I keep hearing this word. And just like, to me, Reiki called me. That it just so happened that when I started hearing it, there was a taster session for the East Riding Reiki Association. So I decided to go along with my mum, and we had this taster session. And the lady there said to me, you are a natural healer. You should train in this. And I thought, okay, right, well, I will. So that's exactly how I got into it. And Reiki really did put me on a different path to health and healing. It really did.
That's amazing. So between the reflexology and the Reiki, is that what
Oh,
helped to heal you then? That was...
yeah, that was the thing, but it was a journey. But what really did the thing for me with Reiki is I did my Reiki 1, and a friend of mine, her daughter unfortunately got a brain tumor, and she was 6 years old.
Oof.
And now I did the the Reiki 1, but I still wasn't 100% convinced it worked, because although I've got a spiritual mind, I'm also very analytical. I need to know, I need the proof, I
Same.
need to know the ins and outs of everything. And I still wasn't 100% convinced, does this work? Because I'd only really ever used it on myself. And so my friend had said to me, can you find somebody who's really good at Reiki? Because, and I thought, well, I'm only Reiki 1, so, I'm not good enough, kind of thing. So then I went to see my Reiki master, and I said, I told him the story about my friend's daughter, and I wanted somebody who was going to be really good to give her Reiki. And he said, well, you're the perfect person. And I said, well, I've only got Reiki 1. And he said, well, you know the child, and Reiki 1 is just as good. But then he got back to me. He discussed this story that I told him about me thinking I wasn't good enough. And he'd mentioned it because the East Riding Reiki Association, where I was attuned, was governed by the UK Reiki Federation. And he spoke to the head of the UK Reiki Federation, who said, I should have the Reiki 2 as a gift so that I could help this
Oh,
child.
how
Isn't that
lovely.
wonderful? Isn't
Yeah.
that absolutely wonderful?
I didn't know that. That's gorgeous.
I know, it was a gift. My Reiki 2 was a gift. So my Reiki master came to my house and attuned me, and he said, then we'll learn it. But right now, you need just to be attuned so you can go to that child and do your Reiki 2. And that's what I did. I still did the course, but he attuned me up, came to my home and attuned me, and that was my gift. And then I started giving her Reiki often. And we decided we would do it at bedtime because it helped her sleep. And the way I came to believe 100% that Reiki worked is I never ever told her that it healed you, because we knew it was not going to heal and save her life. It was just going to help her.
Uh-huh.
So there was no false promises. We just knew it was going to help. And she started saying to her mum, can you get Sue round to give me Reiki? Because Sue is the only one that takes the pain away, because she was experiencing pain in her legs.
Wow. Wow,
And
that's so powerful.
exactly. And that's when I knew 100% that Reiki worked, because there was no me saying, oh, I'm going to do healing on you, like a placebo.
Mm-hmm.
I never said that. I just used to say, I'll come round. It just helps you go to sleep at bedtime. And I would give her Reiki in her bed. I never once said, this is going to take away pain. And it was her. She was my biggest teacher,
Wow.
because she would, and we connected to one another through the heart.
Mm.
And so I say she was my biggest teacher, because we communicated telepathically. There was no words, where I knew she was asking me from her heart, and I was answering from my heart. And I know it gave her peace, and it helped her with the symptoms. She did pass away, but we knew she was going to pass away.
Yeah.
So, but it definitely helped with her symptoms.
But like you say, with a lot of the therapies, they're not a cure, but if they can help somebody and ease somebody's passing, like you were doing, taking the pain away, that must have been such a blessing for parents as well.
I believe it was a blessing to the parents, and my Reiki master attuned the family to Reiki 1, so that
Oh.
they, as a gift, so that they could, when they held her, would be giving her Reiki, without
Oh.
having to do anything. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it was the biggest thing that opened my heart more to Reiki. And then from then on, because I never gave Reiki to anybody else, just her. And then my Reiki master said to me, Sue, it wasn't just for her, it was for everyone. And now you need to give Reiki to other people, because I didn't
Mm.
use it on anybody else, just her. And that, from then on, I then started giving Reiki to other people.
That's amazing. What a
Yeah.
what a wonderful and what a lovely teacher to have contacted the Federation and say, I want to give this as a gift. It's how it
Oh,
should be, isn't it? That's so special.
he was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And because he gave that to me as a gift, there is one person that Spirit told me that I had to give Reiki as a gift to. And that's the Spanish lady that lives in Spain, who has gone on to do magnificent things. And but Spirit told me that that was me, had to give her a gift.
That's amazing. So as you're talking, I know you're very spiritual and I know you work with spirit. So does Reiki heighten that connection to spirit, do you think? Or does it just enable them to come in? How do they work together?
I think that Reiki heightens it. So when everybody's different when they do Reiki, but this is how I work. So I'm only talking from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I work with spirit and my guides and their guides. And um, Reiki, I think definitely it hones it. It makes it clearer, a clearer channel. And it, for me, it focuses my mind so that I am just focusing on my client and their needs.
That's incredible. You've got me going now with that beautiful story. Can you think of, obviously you can't give names, there's always client
No, no.
confidentiality, but can you give me any other examples of like that, just so people can understand how things can be different with different people in different sessions? Can you think of any others?
Well, things are different with people. So I always think that everybody, I don't want them to have an expectation, because
Mm-hmm.
what happens in one treatment might not necessarily happen in yours. But the one of the things that really stands out for me, that taught me a lesson, because Reiki always teaches you a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
and it always helps you along the way. And if you take on the lessons, it helps you along the way. So one of the things was, a lady came to me who was, her husband had passed away, and she was very grief stricken. In fact, she couldn't stop crying. And so somebody had recommended me to her, and she came, and I said, look, you can cry all the way through the therapy if you want to. That's absolutely fine. And I gave her a tissue, and I said, if you want me to stop at any time, just tell me. But if you don't tell me to stop, I will just carry on. And you just let your tears flow, and it's absolutely fine. And we're in private, and it doesn't stop me from doing my Reiki. And I stood behind her, and my expectation was just to help to calm her, just to help her to feel more relaxed and more calm.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't expect was what actually happened, which is the fabulous thing about Reiki. So I stood behind this lady, and I was connecting into her, and then I could feel this most beautiful love, this most intense love that I've ever felt come into my heart. And then I heard the voice of a man say that he was her husband, and he said,
Wow.
my name is Alan, and I want to touch my wife one last time. Can I
Oh.
touch her through you? And I
Oh.
said, yes. I mean, I'm getting emotional
I
talking
know,
about
you're making me.
every time I talk about it, I feel emotional. And
Wow.
so I knew it was safe, and I knew it was genuine, because the love was so intense, and it's very hard to explain this spiritual love unless you've experienced it. It's like nothing you've ever known. So this immense feeling of love came over me, and I had my hands on her shoulders, and the Reiki was flowing, and I opened my eyes, and I looked at my own hands, and they were overshadowed by this man. My hands are quite small, I'm quite petite, and they were overshadowed this big man's hands, and I
Wow.
knew he was feeling her, touching her through me.
Oh.
So he was thanking me during it, and she was sobbing, and I was giving her the Reiki, and then he told me that she needed to look in this jewelry box, because there was something in there for her, and she needed to find it. And he explained what it looked like, and all this kind of thing. But this was the very first time this had ever happened to me, and I didn't really know whether I should tell somebody. I thought, do I tell this woman? And I decided not to tell her, because I thought, oh, I don't want to scare her. I don't want her to think this is weird. I just didn't know what to do,
It's
really.
quite difficult, is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. This was the first time it ever happened to me, where a spirit came in related to a person. So I didn't know what to do. And but she said, when at the end of the treatment, I sat down with her, and we had a cup of tea, because she was so emotional. I didn't want her to just leave, so we sat down, she had a cup of tea, and we had a chat. And so she was telling me all about her husband, and she said, I felt like he was here in the room. I felt like he touched me.
Wow.
And but I should have, this is my lesson, I should have said he did. I just didn't say anything. I just said, oh, well, that was lovely. And I said, just out of, what was your husband's name? I wanted to know for myself, as
Mm-hmm.
proof, as validation. And she said, oh, he was called Alan. And
Wow.
I thought, 100% that was
He was
her
there.
husband. 100%. And I didn't tell her. And that's my one regret, that I didn't tell her, because later, when I'd mentioned it to a couple of other people that I know that also do Reiki, they said, wow, that is such a wonderful experience. Maybe you should have told her,
Mm.
because I would want to know. So from then on, I thought, yes, people maybe do want to know, and I should have more confidence in that. And that's when that was a lesson to me. And from after that, anytime that kind of thing happened, I would tell my client.
That's so powerful. And like you say, there's always the lessons, there's always the healing for us as practitioners in some way, because we do get that, don't we? I
You
do
do.
that fear of, oh, should I say this, or is this okay to say this? And most people are open to it, or they wouldn't be seeing you in the first place. Like my old adage, your vibe attracts your tribe. So these
Yeah.
people are coming of open to that. But it is, I think Reiki does give you that lesson of, don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, it definitely does. And even for the validation, a week later, she told me that whatever was in this jewelry box that did describe that. I said, "Oh, I was getting this image of a jewelry box, blah blah blah. Is there something important in there?" And then she came back to me, and I can't remember what it was now because it was a few years ago. But something I told her was in that jewelry box that she needed to find. So, that was
Well, that's the validation
amazing.
for her then, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, validation for both of us,
Yes.
validation for me and validation for her. And that happens to me a lot of times in my treatment, where spirit often tell me where somebody's real issue is. So
Uh-huh.
they might come to me and they might say, "Oh, I've got this terrible pain in my shoulder," but it's actually to do with an emotional issue.
Hmm.
And that's something else I studied, was mind body connection, which really really helps me when I do my other therapies, because I realize that everything is so connected, and a lot of physical problems start in the mental emotional aspect, and they
Absolutely.
manifest as physical. Yeah.
I totally agree. I can remember when I think it was, we were still here, but when we came to Spain and I had a client who was, she was a medium, and I used to go to her to do reflexology, and she gifted me a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Caroline Mace.
I have that
And
book.
I love that book. And that to me was that 100% confirmation that I needed, that 100% actually, do you know what? This is really it. Because it isn't, I'm not saying, as you the same, we're not saying that all illness comes from the mind, but there is so much connection, isn't there? So much, so many things that, and it isn't a one size fits all. Oh, somebody's got this with the shoulder, that means this, but
Yes,
you
exactly.
you can see, can't you, with the
Yeah.
person, with what's going on, how strong the link is. And I think
Yeah.
that's a whole session. We'll do that as a
Yeah.
session, actually. Shall we
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
that's
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's that was one of the ways that when I started um, learning about the connection between the mind and the body, and obviously, I gave myself Reiki and I started to heal, because my sight is back to normal now, because we did mention that at the beginning, so I'm not blind. My sight is back to normal, and I don't take any medication. And I did it all through. I'm not saying that people should stop their medication by any means. So, but for me, this is my journey, how I did it. And I did meditation. I was doing yoga, obviously with you. You was that's how we met, because you was my yoga teacher. And I just gave myself Reiki. I learned to realize where some of the issues came from. And that's quite a journey in itself.
It is. And I think that's the spiritual journey, isn't it?
It
The
is.
the shedding of the layers. But this is one of the main reasons why I wanted you for the Reiki, because of what you have done for yourself, the shift you have made in your life, and the shift that you have made in other people's lives. I can remember coming to you for reflexology when we were in Spain, and I was absolutely blown away by what
Oh,
you.
wow. Thank you.
I was. Well, if you remember, that's why I gave my clients, when I left Spain, that's why I gave them your number, because I 100% trusted you and knew that you were the real deal, and knew that I could leave them with you.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. That was so good of you.
no, well, that's it's
Yeah.
for the people, isn't it, at the end of the day? But
Yeah, exactly.
you encompass the whole, so you bring. So when I came for the reflexology, I just didn't have reflexology. It's like I had the Sue Care treatment. It's not, and
Oh,
it is, isn't it? It's not, and that'll be what you do with people now. And it is. It's not. I was the same when I used to be, working with therapies. It isn't necessarily one therapy you work with, is it? You bring
no,
everything else in, and that's what makes the whole. That.
exactly. There is people who say sometimes I'm doing reflexology, and then I've had clients say to me, are you doing something to me? Because my whole body's and I'm not intentionally thinking, oh, I'm gonna give them Reiki at the same time, kind of thing. But sometimes it just flows,
Yeah.
especially if I'm thinking about it. Oh, and this part of the body needs healing. But I mix it up with clients as well, what I think they need, and even when I do a consultation, sometimes I listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying.
Mm.
And because I'm intuitive, that's how I gather information and that's how I work. And sometimes people they've come for something completely different, but I end up working on a different thing.
It's what they're
Um,
not saying, isn't it?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
always the key, I find.
And I just think Reiki is the most mind blowing thing that I have ever done, really, because I suppose I'm lucky in the way my gifts are that I have all of the senses. I'm not strong in one. I have them all, so I am quite grateful for that because when I do Reiki, I'll see images, or I'll hear something, or I'll smell something, or I sense something. It's in the aura. When I'm working in the aura, I use all of my senses, and that's how I work with Reiki.
Amazing. Well, you've been the absolute perfect person to talk about it. I'm so grateful for you
I'm
joining me. I
so
really
grateful.
am.
I'm so grateful you asked me. I really am. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
And I'd love to. Shall we have the mind body chat at some
Oh
point?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, we could do that. That's
might have
great.
to put a couple of hours aside for that one.
Yeah.
And also, I would love to chat to you about hypnotherapy as well
Oh
at some
yes,
point
yes.
because that was life changing for me.
Yes, it's
So,
well, it's life changing for a lot of people,
mm.
and at the moment, I am dealing with a client that's like had major, major shifts. So I'm looking forward to when we finished her treatment to be able to share this one.
Oh yeah.
I'll get her permission because this one has been pretty awesome.
Oh, what
So
a cliffhanger to leave
it
us.
is a cliffhanger. We've got to keep you wanting more.
Oh, Sue, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll put all Sue's details in the show notes below. She is in the East Riding of Yorkshire, but as a hypnotherapist, she's available on Zoom, so you can get to her from anywhere in the world. The wonders of technology these days. So thank you, Sue, for joining me. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, Liz. Bye.